Stationed at RAF Leeming in North Yorkshire in the 1950s was 228 Operational Conversion Unit. The main task of the OCU was the training of night fighter crews, and over the years the unit used the de Havilland Mosquito, the Gloster Meteor and the Gloster Javelin aircraft. At 7 p.m. on Tuesday the 24th of March 1954, the crew of Gloster Meteor WD778 took off from RAF Leeming to undertake a cross-country training flight over northern England, flying first to Acklington in Northumberland, then to Scampton in Lincolnshire, and returning to Leeming. The crew consisted of the Pilot Officer John David Briggs, who was 21 years old and from Bury Saint Edmunds in Suffolk. The Navigator was Pilot Officer Derrick Walker, who was also 21 and from Carlisle in Cumbria. It is believed that low cloud was covering northern England that evening, which would have made flying tricky. They set off from Leeming and the flight seemingly passed without a hitch. The crew returned to North Yorkshire for landing and began their descent under radio guidance through thick clouds. Around 5 miles out from landing, they were instructed by ground control to switch on the ground-controlled approach frequency, used to direct them into land. This request was acknowledged by the crew, but then nothing further was heard. It's most likely the aircraft suffered complete radio failure. The crew aborted the landing and climbed away to try and sort the problem out, but in doing so they became lost. This explains why they found themselves flying over the Pennines, northwest of their intended landing point. Sometime later their fuel would have run low, and instead of bailing out, the pilot descended. He probably thought he was much closer to Leeming and the low ground of the Vale of York than he actually was, and he and the Navigator were attempting to locate their position. The reality was much worse than they expected, and they were in fact flying over some of the highest parts of the Pennines, west of the area we know today as Cow Green Reservoir. At 8:45 p.m. that evening, the aircraft struck the brow of high ground to the north of Appleby at Knock Fell, while flying at a shallow angle, and broke up, killing both officers instantly. The wreckage of the Meteor was located 5 days later by a local gamekeeper, who contacted the authorities, and both bodies were recovered. The direction the aircraft was heading in can be seen today by an imprint of the Meteor in the hillside to the west of where the main wreckage is. Ironically, had the aircraft continued in that direction but at higher altitude, they may well have flown over the Pennines and back to base. Both crewmen were buried at Leeming Churchyard in Commonwealth military graves, and a memorial stone is to be found at the Galgate Memorial Gardens in Barnard Castle, commemorating this brave crew and the tragic loss of this Royal Air Force flight.